Captain Tay stood motionless on the bridge of the Axiom warship Daybreak, his eyes fixed on the planet below. Once a vibrant world with sprawling oceans and lush forests, Proxima Centauri 4 now burned. Flames engulfed entire continents as the void-borne defense systems collapsed under Admiral June's relentless assault. The planet would join hundreds of others, just another dead rock in a galaxy full of ruins. "Another victory for the hegemony," announced Admiral June as he entered. The bridge, his uniform adorned with medals from battles Tay could barely remember. The Voidborn retreated to the Epsilon sector. Tay didn't respond immediately. He watched as refugee ships, tiny specks against the burning atmosphere, desperately fled the destruction. Most wouldn't make it. The Voidborn battle cruisers would hunt them down, following the same predictable pattern they'd used for decades. "Was it worth it, sir?" Tay finally asked, turning to face his superior. "We lost 3 destroyers and over 4,000 troops. The mining facilities are destroyed. There's nothing left to claim." Admiral June's face hardened. "You question our tactics, Captain. This is how wars are won. By breaking the enemy's will to fight, the Axiom High Command has used these strategies for 3 centuries. And for 3 centuries we've been locked in the same war," Tay said. Quietly, knowing his words bordered on insubordination. "Perhaps it's time for something new." The Admiral straightened his back. "Follow your orders, Captain. Plot a course to the Rigel system. The Voidborn have established a new colony there." As June left the bridge, Tay gazed once more at the dying planet. The ship's sensors detected no more escape pods. Nothing but silence remained. 40 light-years away, Director Han of the United Earth Defense Force stood before a massive holographic display in an underground facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. The room was filled with Earth's top military and scientific minds, all silent as they observed the latest intelligence gathered by humanity's deep space probes. "This footage was captured 3 days ago," Han explained, gesturing to the hologram showing an Axiom battle group destroying a Voidborn outpost. "Our stealth drones have mapped over 60% of known space. The conflict is even worse than we initially believed." Dr. Kang, Earth's leading xenobiologist, shook her head. "The level of destruction is incomprehensible. Entire ecosystems, completely unique forms of life wiped out in hours. And neither side shows any sign of stopping," added General Bo, his weathered face grim. "Their weapons technology is centuries beyond ours, but their tactics haven't evolved in generations." Han nodded, bringing up another hologram showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red and blue indicators represented the territories of the warring factions. 3 years ago, we achieved what we thought impossible. Faster-than-light travel," Han continued. "We've explored nearby star systems, established outposts on distant moons, all while keeping our presence hidden from these warring aliens. But our window of secrecy is closing." The room fell silent as Han zoomed in on a section of the map where several red indicators were moving steadily towards Saul. "The Axiom hegemony has begun expanding in our direction. Their resource demands are insatiable. Based on their current trajectory, they'll discover Earth within 2 years." The hologram shifted to show footage of an Axiom harvester ship stripping a planet of minerals, leaving nothing but a hollow shell behind. "Their automated mining machines convert entire planets into warships and weapons," Han explained. "Neither side cares about preserving worlds anymore. They only see resources for their war machine." General Bo stepped forward. "We've analyzed their battle formations and strategies. They fight like ancient armies. Rigid formations, frontal assaults, overwhelming force. It's as if they've forgotten how to adapt." "Perhaps that's our advantage," suggested Commander Lee, who had been quietly observing from the corner. Everyone turned to look at the young officer. "We may be technologically inferior, but we haven't forgotten how to think differently." Han nodded thoughtfully. "The Security Council remains divided. Half believe we should maintain isolation, build our defenses, and pray they never find us. The other half think we should reveal ourselves now on our terms, rather than be discovered unprepared." "And your opinion, Director?" asked Dr. Kang. Han waved his hand, and the hologram changed to show Earth, peaceful, blue, and achingly vulnerable, compared to the massive war fleets that roamed the stars. "We cannot hide forever," Han said, his voice quiet but firm. "Sooner or later, they will find us. And when they do, they won't see us as equals. They'll see us as they see everything else, resources, to be consumed." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had reached for the stars, only to find them consumed by endless war. "There's something else you should see," Hans said after a moment. He gestured, and the hologram changed again, showing a strange alien device recovered from an abandoned battlefield. "Our scientists have been studying artifacts from both sides. We believe we've discovered weaknesses in their shield technologies and communication systems that they've never addressed, because no one has challenged them to innovate in centuries." A spark of hope flickered across the room. Commander Lee moved closer to examine the alien technology. "We have something they lost long ago," Lee said. "We still remember how to adapt, how to think creatively. Maybe that's enough to make a difference." Han looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each person present. "The War Council votes tomorrow. No matter what they decide, we need to prepare. Humanity is about to enter a conflict that has consumed the galaxy for longer than our civilization has existed." As if on cue, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. A technician rushed in, face pale. "Director, our outpost on Mars has detected an incoming ship. It's not one of ours. It appears to be damaged and on a collision course with the surface." Han's expression remained calm, though his heart raced. "It seems the decision has been made for us. Sound the alert. First contact protocols are now in effect." The galaxy was about to learn that humans had joined the stars, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Axiom battlecruiser tore through the thin Martian atmosphere, trailing fire and debris across the red planet's sky. Observation outposts across Mars tracked its descent, sending urgent alerts to Earth Command. The massive vessel, easily 3 times larger than anything humans had built, slammed into the Martian surface with such force that seismic sensors registered the impact across the entire planet. A plume of dust rose miles into the sky, visible even from orbiting stations. Colonel Park stood at the viewport of the Rapid Response Shuttle as it approached the crash site. He'd trained for countless scenarios during his 15 years with the United Earth Defense Force, but first contact with an advanced alien civilization hadn't been one of them. At least not like this. "Radiation levels nominal," reported Lieutenant Sue from the sensor station. "Atmosphere around the crash site is breathable, but I'm detecting several unknown compounds. Recommend full containment suits." Park nodded, turning to face the 12. Members of his team, a carefully selected mix of scientists, medical personnel, and security specialists. "Remember your training. We approach with caution, but without aggression. Our primary goal is to establish peaceful contact and offer assistance. If they respond with hostility," he let the sentence hang unfinished. Everyone understood the stakes. Humanity's first official interaction with an alien species could determine the fate of Earth itself. The shuttle landed half a kilometer from the crash site. Through swirling dust, Park could make out the enormous silhouette of the alien vessel. Despite the catastrophic landing, large sections remained intact. The ship's design was unlike anything in human engineering, all curves and strange angles that seemed to bend in impossible ways. Movement detected near what appears to be an exit hatch, Sue reported, studying her handheld scanner. "Multiple life forms, but readings are faint." Park signaled his team forward. They moved cautiously across the Martian terrain, weapons holstered but ready. As they approached, a section of the ship's hull slid open with a hydraulic hiss, releasing a cloud of strange-smelling vapor. An alien figure stumbled out, clearly injured. It was tall, nearly 7 feet, with grey-blue skin and 4 arms. What caught Park's attention most were its eyes, 4 of them, arranged in a diamond pattern on its face, all blinking rapidly in the Martian sunlight. Behind this first alien, several others appeared, some being carried by robotic medical units that walked on 6 spindly legs. The machines beeped and chirped as they attended to their wounded masters. Commander Sung stepped forward beside Park. As the team's xenolinguistics expert, she carried the experimental universal translator, a device that had never been field-tested with actual alien language. "I am Commander Sung of Earth," she said clearly, activating the translator which repeated her words in a series of clicks and whistles based on the sounds they'd analyzed from intercepted alien communications. "We want to help." The lead alien staggered, nearly falling. Park instinctively moved forward to offer support, catching one of its forearms. The alien stiffened at the contact but didn't pull away. Up close, Park could see the creature was wearing some kind of military uniform, now torn and stained with dark purple fluid that Park assumed was blood. The alien studied Park with its 4 eyes, then raised a device attached to its upper right wrist. It spoke, a complex series of sounds that Park's human ears could barely distinguish as separate words. The translator on Sung's belt hummed, processed, then produced, "I am General Kai of the 17th Fleet, Axiom Hegemony. You are not in our records." The alien's eyes narrowed, focusing on the humans with newfound intensity. "What species are you? How long have you had interstellar capabilities?" Sung stepped forward, medical kit in hand. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We achieved interstellar travel recently." She offered the kit. "You're injured. We can help." General Kai hesitated, then accepted the medical supplies with one of his lower arms. He barked orders to his crew, and the medical robots retreated back into the ship. "Your technology," Kai said, gesturing to their shuttle. "It is primitive. Yet you offer aid to strangers who crash on your world. Curious." Dr. Jin, the team's medical officer, cautiously approached. "May I examine your wounds? Our biology may be different, but the basics of trauma care often translate across species." After a moment's consideration, Ki nodded. While Jin worked, applying temporary sealants to the alien's wounds, Sung continued the conversation. "Your ship, what happened?" Kai's upper shoulders performed what might have been a shrug. "Void-born ambush. Our hyperdrive was damaged, escaping their battle group. We needed somewhere to land for repairs." He paused, studying the humans again. "We didn't know this system was inhabited by sentience. The axiom charts show no civilization here." "We've kept ourselves hidden," Park explained. "We've observed the conflict between your people and the Voidborn for some time." This revelation clearly surprised Kai. "You've been watching us? For how long?" "Long enough to see the destruction," Sung said quietly. "Enough to see entire worlds reduced to ash." Kai's expression changed, though Park couldn't interpret the alien emotion. "This war has raged for centuries, perhaps millennia. The beginning is lost even to our historians." He gestured toward the sky with one of his upper arms. "The galaxy burns while we fight over what remains." Over the next several hours, as Earth sent additional teams to help with the wounded Axiom crew, Kai shared details about the war that human observation had never uncovered. The scale was even more devastating than they had feared. Hundreds of billions dead, thousands of civilizations extinct, entire star systems rendered uninhabitable. 2 days later, Director Han himself arrived on Mars to meet with General Kai. By then, the alien leader had been moved to a makeshift medical facility, and communication had improved, as the translation algorithms adapted. "Your species shows remarkable compassion," Ki told Han. "The Voidborn would have executed my crew and stripped our ship for parts. Even my own people might have left us if rescue was inconvenient." Han nodded solemnly. "Humanity has had its share of wars, General. We've learned hard lessons about the cost of conflict." "Then you are wiser than we were at your stage of development." Kai's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "But wisdom will not protect you when the war reaches your doorstep." "And it will, Director Han. It always does." "Perhaps there's another way," Han suggested. "Earth wishes to send diplomatic representatives to both the Axiom Hegemony and the Voidborn Concordat. Maybe fresh eyes can see solutions that have been overlooked." Ki made a sound that the translator didn't catch, possibly laughter. "You are young and hopeful. The Axiom High Command will see you as a curiosity at best, a resource to exploit at worst. Hand the Voidborn." He shook his head. "They destroy anything they cannot control." Despite Kai's warnings, Earth's Security Council voted to intervene. 3 weeks later, a diplomatic shuttle carrying representatives from all Earth nations departed for Axiom space, carrying messages of peace and offers of mediation. The shuttle never reached its destination. It was fired upon by Axiom border patrols, then pursued and attacked by Voidborn interceptors when it fled. Only 2 escape pods returned to Earth, carrying the grim news. Both galactic powers viewed humanity as nothing more than another piece on their ancient battlefield. In the aftermath, as Earth prepared for the war that would inevitably come to their doorstep, Colonel Park found himself summoned to a secure facility beneath the Himalayas. There he discovered General Key, now recovered from his injuries, working alongside human military strategists. "Your diplomatic efforts were naive," Kai told him bluntly, "but not unexpected. Now comes the real work." He gestured to the holographic battle simulations surrounding them. "If humanity wishes to survive in this galaxy, you must first prove yourselves on the battlefield. Only strength earns respect among the stars now." Park studied the alien general. "You're helping us? Why?" Kai's 4 eyes focused on Park with surprising intensity. "Because in your primitive ships and your simple weapons, I see something my people lost centuries ago. Something that might finally end this war." "And what's that?" Park asked. "Innovation," Kai replied. "The courage to try something new. The Axiom and Voidborn have fought the same war with the same tactics for so long that we've forgotten how to think differently." He gestured toward the simulation of an Earth fighter craft. "You humans haven't." Field Marshal Doe's 4 eyes widened in horror as he watched the human soldiers methodically dismantling the Axiom battle armor, equipment that had been standardized across the hegemony's forces for over 5 centuries. "This is not how war is conducted," he protested, his translator struggling to convey his mixture of shock and indignation. "These are precision-engineered combat systems designed by our finest military scientists." Major Sim didn't look up from the power coupling she was rewiring. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, bypassing safety protocols that limited the weapon's output. Sweat beaded on her forehead in the alien ship's atmosphere, which ran several degrees warmer than humans. "Found comfortable. With respect, your approach hasn't been working for 300 years, she replied, testing the modified weapon's weight. The energy cell now glowed with twice its normal intensity. "The Voidborn know exactly what to expect from your forces. That ends today." Around her, 200 human soldiers, the first military contingent Earth had contributed to the Axiom war effort, were similarly modifying their issued equipment. Some were stripping away heavy armor plating to improve mobility. Others were reconfiguring communication systems to operate on frequencies the Voidborn scanners couldn't detect. Doo's upper arms gestured in frustration while his lower ones remained, formally clasped behind his back, a posture indicating severe disapproval in Axiom culture. "You risk court-martial. Our battle doctrines have been perfected through millennia of conflict." Lieutenant Gill looked up from the hover tank he was reconfiguring. "That's exactly the problem. Your enemies have had millennia to learn how to counter those doctrines." He wiped grease from his hands. "When was the last time the Axiom tried something new?" The alien commander had no answer. 3 days later, the human contingent deployed, alongside Axiom forces to defend the mining colony on Talaris 4. The Voidborn attack came precisely as Axiom intelligence had predicted, a standard 3-pronged assault with heavy artillery opening fire from orbit before ground forces landed, in massive dropships. What they hadn't predicted was the human response. Major Sim's voice crackled over the comm system. "All units execute Operation Mosquito." The human soldiers, who had been positioned in the standard Axiom defensive formation, large visible groups behind energy barriers, suddenly scattered. They disappeared into the rocky terrain, the underground, tunnels, and the dense vegetation of the jungle regions. Field Marshal Doo watched in dismay from the command center. "What are they doing? They've abandoned their positions. The Voidborn will overrun them within minutes." General Key, who had spent the past months working with the humans on Earth, simply smiled his 4-eyed smile. "Watch, old friend. Just watch." The Voidborn ground forces, 9-foot-tall insectoid creatures with natural armor plating and augmented weapon systems, advanced in their usual tight formations. They marched forward with mechanical precision, expecting to encounter the standard Axiom resistance at the colony's perimeter. Instead, they found nothing. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Commanders barked orders through their chittering mandibles. Scout units were dispatched. The main force halted, exactly as Major Sim had predicted. That's when the humans struck. Not in a single coordinated frontal assault as the Axiom would have done, but in dozens of small lightning-fast strikes from multiple directions. Modified Axiom weapons fired from hidden positions in the rocks. Improvised explosive devices detonated beneath the Voidborn formations. Human soldiers appeared from nowhere, struck critical targets, and vanished again before the enemy could respond. The Voidborn commanders, accustomed to the rigid tactics of the Axiom, couldn't adapt quickly enough. Their carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. Meanwhile, far from the main battlefield, Captain Yoon and his 5-person infiltration team had slipped through the Voidborn defensive grid entirely. Using stolen identification codes provided by Axiom intelligence and modified stealth technology of human design, they approached the massive orbital cannon that the Voidborn had positioned to destroy the colony once their ground forces withdrew. The D. Proxima III planetary cannon was considered impenetrable, a massive space station with defenses designed to repel an entire fleet. No direct assault had ever succeeded against such an installation, but Yoon had no intention of assaulting it. "We're approaching the maintenance dock," he whispered into his comm unit as their small shuttle, disguised as a Voidborn supply vessel, drifted toward the station. "Jin, are you ready with the package?" Lieutenant Jin patted the innocent-looking data core beside her. "Ready. If their systems are as standardized as the Axioms, this should work perfectly. The false identification codes got them through the first security checkpoint." Quick stunner fire took care of the 3 Voidborn engineers who met them at the dock. Sergeant Tay, the team's xenolinguistics expert, quickly studied the fallen aliens' vocal patterns before speaking into the comm panel. "Maintenance complete. Returning to supply depot," he chittered in a perfect imitation of Voidborn speech. Patterns. The security system accepted the voice print without question. With the station's internal sensors still registering them as authorized maintenance workers, the team made their way to the central control hub. They encountered only token resistance, confused technicians who never expected enemies to appear inside their supposedly secure facility. "We have 4 minutes before the shift change," Yoon reminded his team as they reached the main control room. "Jin, do your thing." Jin plugged the data core into the Voidborn computer system. Unlike the brute force approach the Axiom would have used, trying to destroy the cannon with missiles or energy weapons, the humans had created a simple but elegant virus. It didn't try to shut down the weapon. It just changed its targeting. "Parameters. Upload complete," Jin announced after 70 tense seconds. "The system thinks our colony is actually empty space, and it now recognizes the Voidborn fleet as hostile targets." Yoon allowed himself a small smile. Time to leave. They were halfway back to their shuttle when the first tremors shook the station. On the main view screen in the docking bay, they could see the massive cannons swiveling toward the Voidborn's own command ships. The alien technicians were frantically trying to override the system, but Jin's virus had locked them out of their own weapon. The cannon fired, a blinding beam of energy that cut through 3 Voidborn battlecruisers as if they were paper. Panic spread through the enemy fleet as they tried to understand why their own superweapon had turned against them. By the time they realized what had happened, Yoon's team was safely away, their small shuttle lost amid the confusion of the Voidborn. Retreat. Back on Talaris 4, Field Marshal Du stared in disbelief at the tactical display. The Voidborn forces were in full retreat. The mining colony, which Axiom High Command had been prepared to sacrifice, stood largely intact. And the human casualties were minimal compared to what standard Axiom tactics would have cost. "How?" he asked simply, turning to Major Sim as she returned to the command center, her armor scuffed but her expression satisfied. "You've been fighting this war the same way for centuries," she explained, accepting a water pouch from her aide. "Both sides have. You launch massive assaults, they counter with massive defenses. You build bigger weapons, they build stronger shields. It's a war of attrition that nobody can win. And your alternative? Asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations." She shrugged. "Old concepts on Earth, but apparently new here. We don't try to overpower the enemy, we outthink them. General Kai stepped forward, placing one of his 4 hands on Do's shoulder. This is why I brought the humans into our fight, old friend. Not for their technology, which is primitive compared to ours, not for their numbers, which are insignificant, but for this, he tapped his head with another hand, for new ideas, in a war grown stale with old thinking. Do looked around the command center, where human and Axiom officers were already planning the next operation. The High Command will not approve. This violates every principle of honorable combat in our doctrines. The High Command, Kai replied quietly, has sacrificed billions of our people in a war without end. Perhaps it's time we tried something, dishonorable for a change. Major Sim checked her modified weapon. On Earth we have an old saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. She looked up at the towering alien. No. Offense, but your war has been insane for a very long time. For the first time in his long military career, Field Marshal Du found himself without a counter-argument. Admiral Ju slammed all 6 of his clawed appendages onto the strategy table, leaving deep gouges in the living metal surface. The other. Voidborn commanders flinched at the display of rage, an emotion their species rarely exhibited in its raw form. "Show me again," he hissed through clicking mandibles. The hologram replayed the humiliating defeat at Talaris 4. What should have been a simple operation, a pattern they had executed successfully thousands of times before, had dissolved into chaos. Worse were the recordings from Proxima 3, where their own planetary cannon had turned against them, destroying 3 irreplaceable battle cruisers. "These tactics are unprecedented," observed Sub-Commander Lear, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic carnage. "The Axiom have never fought this way in 7 centuries of conflict." "It is not the Axiom," Ju said, his voice unnaturally calm now. "Analyze the visual data from the ground assault." The hologram zoomed in on the attackers who had disrupted their formations. They were smaller than the Axiom, with only 2 arms and eyes, moving with surprising speed and unpredictability. "A new species," Lear confirmed. "Unknown in our biological catalogues." Intelligence Officer Nev stepped forward, his exoskeleton still bearing scars from a previous battle. "We have intercepted communications. They call themselves humans. They appear to have allied with the Axiom recently, within the last solar cycle." Admiral Ju studied the strange bipedal creatures with growing concern. The Voidborn Concordat had encountered many species during their expansion. Most were easily subjugated or exterminated. A few joined willingly. None had ever disrupted their military operations so effectively with such primitive technology. "These humans, they are the source of the new tactics," Ju concluded. "Not the Axiom. The Axiom remain predictable, rigid in their thinking. But these creatures..." He gestured at the hologram where a human soldier was reconfiguring an Axiom weapon in ways that violated all standard protocols. "They improvise. They adapt. They must be studied," suggested Nev. "Captured specimens would..." "No," Ju interrupted, an idea forming in his mind. "There is no time for study. These primitives must be eliminated before their influence spreads further." He manipulated the holographic controls with practiced efficiency, bringing up a star chart. Trace their origin point. The chart expanded, focusing on a previously unremarkable star system in a quiet sector of the galaxy. 3rd planet from an average yellow star, unremarkable except for the unusual concentration of liquid water on its surface. "Earth," Ju said, tasting the strange word. "We will strike directly at their homeworld. A single overwhelming attack that will eliminate this species before they can further corrupt the natural order of this war." The Voidborn High Command approved the plan within hours. 200 ships, nearly a fifth of their total fleet, were diverted from other campaigns and sent toward the Sol system. It would be the largest single deployment of Voidborn forces in over a century. On Earth, celebrations were still underway following the news from Talaris 4. The victory had vindicated humanity's approach and strengthened their position within the Axiom Alliance. Few expected the Voidborn to respond so quickly or so drastically. General Min was reviewing defense protocols in the underground command center beneath New Sol when the first alerts came through. The deep space monitoring stations, disguised as ordinary satellites in the outer solar system, had detected the incoming void-born armada. "How many?" she asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. 200 capital ships. "General," replied the young lieutenant at the sensor station. "Largest formation we've ever observed. Time to Earth orbit, approximately 43 hours. The command center fell silent. Earth's combined defense fleet numbered fewer than 30 vessels, none of which could match even the smallest voidborn. Warship in direct combat. Alert all United Earth Defense Force commands, Min ordered. Implement Protocol Omega, and get me Director Han immediately." While panic spread through civilian governments worldwide, Earth's military leadership gathered in the secure bunker. They had always known this day might come, that humanity's entry into galactic affairs would eventually bring the war to their doorstep. What they hadn't expected was how quickly the Voidborn would identify Earth as a threat. "They're afraid of us," concluded Han, as they studied the incoming fleet's formation. "Not our weapons or ships, but our ideas. We've shown the Axiom a new way to fight, and the Voidborn recognize the danger. Fear won't help us if they glass the planet from orbit," pointed out Admiral Pak, the Space Fleet commander. "We can't match them in a conventional battle." General Min stepped forward. "Then we don't fight conventionally." She activated the Central Holographic Display, bringing up schematics for a system that had been developed in secret over the past 2 years. "It's time to deploy the Athena network." The Adaptive Tactical Heuristic Electronic Neural Array had been Earth's contingency plan, a defensive system unlike anything in the galaxy. While both the Axiom and Voidborn relied on predictable programmed responses in their automated defenses, Athena was different. It was a true artificial intelligence, designed to learn and adapt in real time. "The system isn't fully tested," warned Dr. Wu, the project's lead scientist. "We've run simulations, but it's never faced actual combat conditions. We're out of options," Min replied simply. "Begin full activation." Throughout the solar system, hidden installations came online. Stealth satellites in Mars orbit, weapon platforms disguised as mining facilities in the asteroid belt, drone carriers hidden within the moons of Jupiter, all connected to Athena's central core, a quantum computing facility buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. As the Voidborn fleet entered the outer solar system, they encountered no resistance. Their sensors detected the primitive human defenses around Earth itself, easily overwhelmed by their superior numbers and firepower. Admiral Ju ordered his fleet to advance in standard formation, preparing for a quick and decisive victory. That's when Athena made her first move. The AI had spent hours analyzing every recorded Voidborn battle tactic, identifying patterns and weaknesses invisible to organic minds. It found a recurring vulnerability in the enemy's formation, a blind spot in their sensor coverage that appeared for just 3.7 seconds during standard realignment procedures. Without waiting for human approval, Athena launched her attack. A swarm of stealth drones, tens of thousands of them, each barely larger than a human hand, emerged from hiding places throughout the asteroid belt. They slipped through the momentary blind spot and attached themselves to the hulls of the Voidborn. "Vessels? What are those?" Han asked, watching the tactical display in astonishment. "Electronic warfare packages," Wu explained. "Each one carries a unique virus designed to infiltrate Voidborn systems." The effect was immediate and devastating. Ship after ship reported critical malfunctions. Navigation systems failed. Weapons targeted friendly vessels. Communication networks collapsed into static. Admiral Ju watched in horror as his carefully orchestrated assault disintegrated into chaos. A third of his fleet was already disabled, their systems corrupted beyond recovery. Another third was firing on the wrong targets, sometimes their own ships. Only the flagship and its immediate escorts maintained control, protected by specialized security systems. "Impossible," he hissed. "Their technology is primitive. They cannot—" "Sir," interrupted a panicked tactical officer, "new contacts emerging from the gas giant." From Jupiter's shadow, Earth's small but intact defense fleet appeared, led by Admiral Pak's flagship Dauntless. The human vessels were outnumbered and outgunned, but with Athena coordinating their movements and most of the Voidborn fleet in disarray, they struck with devastating precision. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. When it ended, the mighty Voidborn armada was in retreat, those ships still capable of faster-than-light travel, dragging their damaged companions behind them. Admiral Ju's flagship limped away last, its once magnificent hull scarred by multiple direct hits. The cost had been high. 7 of Earth's 30 ships destroyed and thousands of lives lost. But Earth itself remained untouched. Humanity had survived its first direct confrontation with a galactic superpower. In the aftermath, as recovery teams collected debris and survivors, Commander Hyun stood on the observation deck of an Axiom support vessel that had arrived too late to join the battle. Beside him, General Key watched the cleanup with all 4 eyes wide in astonishment. "Your people," Key said slowly, "have accomplished in one day what the Axiom could not achieve in centuries. You didn't just defeat the Voidborn, you humbled them." Hyun shook his head. "We didn't win through superior firepower or because we're better warriors. We won because we remembered something both the Axiom and Voidborn have forgotten." "And what is that?" asked Kai. "That we fight not to destroy but to preserve," Hyun replied. "We developed Athena not to kill more efficiently, but to protect what matters. Your war has been about annihilation for so long that both sides have forgotten there can be another purpose to fighting." Within weeks, this philosophy began spreading through the Axiom forces, first among those who had fought alongside humans, then to other units. A new doctrine emerged, emphasizing precision over destruction, adaptation over rigid adherence to tradition. Scattered Axiom resistance groups that had been fighting their own private wars against both major powers rallied to this new approach. The galaxy had taken notice. The balance of power, stable for centuries, had shifted, not through superior weapons or numbers, but through a fundamental change in perspective brought by the newest species to join the stars. The space station Genesis hung in the void like a glittering jewel, its 3 massive rings rotating slowly around a central hub. It orbited the star Epsilon Eridani, one of the few systems in the galaxy that had remained untouched by the centuries-long war. No planets had been destroyed, here no civilizations exterminated. It was as close to neutral territory as could be found. Diplomat Choi stared out the viewport at the assembled fleet outside. Hundreds of ships from both the Axiom Hegemony and Voidborn Concordat, arranged in careful formation to maintain equal distance from each other. Mixed among them were the much smaller human vessels, positioned strategically between the ancient enemies like buffer zones. "They still don't trust each other," observed Admiral Park, who stood beside her. 3 months of ceasefire, and they position their ships as if battle might break out any moment. 3 centuries of hatred doesn't disappear overnight, Choi Dai replied, straightening her formal diplomatic uniform. "But they're here. That's what matters." The conference chamber was a marvel of compromise. Its circular design ensured no delegation could claim a position of dominance. The atmospheric controls constantly adjusted to accommodate the biological needs of 3 very different species. Translation devices refined by human linguists ensured perfect communication. Choi took her position at the central podium, flanked by representatives from Earth's united government. Across from her sat High Commander Ara of the Axiom, his 4 eyes blinking nervously as his 4 hands arranged and rearranged the data crystals before him. To her right was Supreme Coordinator Vec of the Voidborn, her chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lights, compound eyes reflecting multiple images of the assembled delegates. "We gather today," Choi began, her voice calm despite the weight of the moment, not to assign blame or negotiate surrender terms. "We come together to end a conflict that has devastated our galaxy for longer than most of our civilizations have existed." The chamber remained silent. Many had expected this peace conference to fail like hundreds before it. The difference this time was humanity's role as mediator, a species with no historical grievances against either side. As a newcomer to galactics affairs, Choi continued, humanity has had the unique opportunity to study this conflict from an outsider's perspective. Our historians and linguists have spent months analyzing the earliest records from both the Axiom archives and the Voidborn memory cores. She activated the central holographic display, showing ancient text in both Axiom and Voidborn script. Your peoples have forgotten what started this war. We believe we've found the answer, and it may surprise you. The display zoomed in on specific passages, highlighting key phrases. The original conflict began with a dispute over the Sagittarius Arm territories. The Axiom believed the Voidborn had threatened to consume the worlds of the living. This was interpreted as a genocidal threat and prompted immediate military response. High Commander Ara nodded solemnly. This is consistent with our historical records. The Voidborn threatened to devour our colony worlds. But that's not what actually happened, Choi said, gesturing to the Voidborn text. The original Voidborn communication, when properly translated, stated they would cultivate the soils of life. They were proposing an agricultural partnership, not threatening consumption of worlds. A murmur ran through the chamber. Supreme. Coordinator Vec's antennae twitched violently. Impossible, Vec chittered through her translator. The Axiom struck first, unprovoked. Our histories are clear.